Hey everyone, welcome back to Cybersecurity TV. This week we're going to talk about the prototype pollution vulnerability. This is very interesting vulnerability and not very well understood by a lot of people, so I thought maybe let me try and discuss about this one. And interesting fact is this is not a very well-known vulnerability like SQL injection or cross-site scripting, but this is still very critical finding, and you would still be able to find in the most recent application. And actually, I was testing one of the application more recently, and I found this vulnerability, and that's what inspired me to do this video, because I wanted you guys to understand what this vulnerability is. So this is more like due to bug in the JavaScript or how the JavaScript itself is structured. But in JavaScript, prototype defines an object structure and properties so that the application knows how to deal with the data. So in JavaScript, the prototype, and the prototype is something like blueprint. It's object structure and properties. So for example, let's say one of your object is name is person, and the properties that object could have is first name and last name, or age, or whatever. So that's properties. So that's the prototype. So this is very basic. I'm not going to go into much detail on very basic on how this actually works. So I'm assuming you know that. If not, then definitely reach out and ask me the questions, or you can also Google it for the answers. But yeah, it turns out like if you modify the prototype in one place, it will affect how the objects work throughout the entire application. So change at one place of prototype pollute the entire application. So for example, let's say there is one object, there is one constructor that we created, person, and person has two properties, first name and last name. And out of those constructor, we have created throughout the application two objects, person one, person two. Now, if you want to add a property for this constructor, right? For a particular, let's say if we do person one and add a new property called age in person one object, but not in person two, then when we fetch the details, we're not going to get the details for person two. And that's when if you add into the prototype, it will be reflected for all the objects. So once you're able to successfully update the prototype of the object, it will reflect to inherit whichever object have inherited from that constructor. So prototype pollution is a vulnerability affecting JavaScript. Prototype pollution refers to the ability to inject properties into existing JavaScript language construct prototypes, such as objects. JavaScript allows all objects attributes to be altered, including their magical attributes such as proto, and that's the problem. So when somebody is able to access or update proto, which is sort of like a root level access or a root level prototype of any object, then this vulnerability does arise. Now let's take a look at the sample code. So here we have a customer, and it has name, person, and address, whatever. And if we say constructor customer.toString, it will say output whatever it is, right? Now, if we set the value of customer.pro.toString alert polluted, and if somebody is printing that, of course it will alert box pops up and says polluted. Now this is not just for the customer object, and this is typo. It's not let with where or something, but yeah. But this is not just for the customer object. So any future objects or any future objects created from this constructor, if anyone's trying to do this toString, they will get an alert box, right? So that's how the vulnerability happens. So I have linked vulnerable JavaScript code here, and I'm also gonna link it into the description, so check that out. But let me show you real quick what this example is. And so typically this pollution attack, and don't mix this up with the parameter pollution. This is a different prototype pollution. So it happens when somebody is merging the two functions, or when there are two properties, or then when they're merging two objects, or when they're cloning object A from object B, or there is a path assignment. So all these operations would invoke this vulnerability. So let's say we are doing this merge operation, And if we so now what payload let's say you find this merge operation while reviewing the JS library or JS code or something. Now, if you pass this payload, a proto is equal to polluted is equal to true, it will add a new property called polluted and set the value to true for any new objects created from this constructor. Right. So when you're merging it, the object that you're merging to will also get this property. Now, what are the types of attack that you could do using this vulnerability? One, you can do DOS, like when object holds generic functions. So, for example, if it's holding integer or something, and then you're changing it to something else, or you're passing some other values, and application does not understand or not able to parse it, it will lead to a code fail and application will crash. The other and critical attack that you could do is privilege escalation, where the code base evaluates the specific attributes of an object, and then the attacker pollutes some attributes of prototype object and which leverage him to high level of permission. So here, for example, we are doing prototype is admin is equal to true, and that's how, if we set the value of is admin property to true, then of course the attacker will get the admin access. Right, and that this is just an example, but yeah, you can set whatever value you want. One, you can also set numeric if you know one. That's how application interprets whether this is an admin account or not. Now there are already a few libraries which are already affected, and there are some more libraries which are yet to discovered. But one of the library is this npm.js code package load dash. And this is their code. This is if we allow a user input to be add like a property here, and then that's how actually it allows the user to, or I would say attacker, to add a payload to this proto. So here it's gonna print this it works, and then you can also have attacker add the malicious payload, and then after you can try this by yourself in any JavaScript editor, and it should be straightforward. There is another library which is vulnerable and which is just extend. So here as well, same thing. It allows attacker to control the JSON. So it's not doing some JSON validation properly. So when you send a request, and if you're able to send this request, the prototype is admin true in your API request, and then application accepts it, then yeah, that's the problem, because now you're able to modify the prototype of the constructor. You can pause and actually read through the code slowly, but yeah, this is what it is. Now, as per Snyk reports, there are more than 20 plus known live vulnerabilities across different packages that run Node.js on the browser. So there might be many that haven't yet been discovered. So if you find any library, and just make sure you check out the public database and make sure it's not affected with this vulnerability. Because that's also critical, because you might be, or your customer might be using the older version of the library, which might have already been vulnerable to this attack. Let's talk about the mitigation. That's very important, right? The first one is input validation. So some npm.js packages offer the schema validation for the JSON data to ensure that JSON only contains expected attributes with appropriate type and reject all the other unneeded attributes. Right, so just like injection vulnerability, input validation is at the top. So make sure you are doing input validation. You're not allowing user to change the proto underscore and properties. Now, avoid using unsafe merge, clone, extend, and path assignment operation, especially for path assignment. This is, I guess, a vulnerability or a flaw by design. So we won't be able to do much in terms of avoiding for the path assignment, but I think the only thing as a developer or as a consultant you should be recommending is do not allow user to input directly to the path assignment operation. That's the only way to prevent it. Now you can also consider using object.createNull, which has no property. You can also use map instead of the object. Then you can also actually freeze the prototype using this, this chain of commands. That's also, I guess, a good defense as well, or defense in depth. And then we also have one example where you can try prototype pollution tag. So you can download and try various inputs what you have learned throughout this presentation or throughout this video, and probably you can try this by yourself on how this attack really operates. So that's about it. I wanted to talk about this attack and probably wanted to highlight how critical this attack is and what can be done. And this is not a very famous attack, although it's still available or affected many vulnerabilities. So make sure you do look out for. I have put all the links in the description, including the Facebook page, so where I post some interesting articles or facts that I find here and there. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to comment me down the section in the comment box. And if you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. That's it for this week. I'll see you guys next Monday. Bye.